Yay. So it's good to see you again, Ira, and for us to be talking today about, as we were trying to figure out topics on gatekeeping. And I want to figure this out together today with you because it's something you and I have talked to with each other. Unfortunately, in my world, the gatekeeping and let's define that first. It's someone keeping something from us or the perception of someone keeping something from us. True or not sure. But I know for me, in my physical world, it's just really about, someone in marketing, keeping the secret and the client having to walk through 8 steps. And then when I think of gatekeeping, I guess in your world especially, because again, I only get to hear little snippets of what people do with the online piece, but it seems like they're having a really tough time navigating through the world of Facebook or any social media platform in terms of what is private, what is not. Everyone is angry about these things. And I frankly don't know what to tell clients. I really don't know that end other than, what I know is what I will tell you. And then I hope, you can bounce off and be helpful too, even for me. When I think of it from a online perspective, when the clients are complaining about, well, my privacy was taken or this or that, I'm going to be honest with you as an individual. I knew when I joined Facebook that my information might not be fully my information. And I don't know that everyone understands that, but the rest I really don't have a whole lot of knowledge on. So do you think that that's even a real thing in terms of how those systems work? Because they are so far out of my world. What are your thoughts on the gatekeeping of things?
Well, first I guess I would think about what the gate is and where does it exist? Why does it exist? Who built it? Such on, so forth, right? I'm not really sure how to touch on it. Like, it equates to the real world because it is sort of a boundary between people in the social media platforms because, not everybody has all the accounts. Some are only on some places, right? And you only get some news somewhere. And I don't know if there are less so gates than different feeds, right? And with the world being as loud as it is, it's hard to find the feeds or even the right gates to be at when you want to be there, I guess.
Yeah. When you say... And I think I know what you might mean, but loud meaning everyone's in your face kind of online. Is that what you're speaking to?
Willfully.
Yeah.
You open the app.
And it pops. And someone's in your face, normally yelling. Yeah, at least, if depending on the news feed, right? Or what app you've opened. So do you think... regarding the privacy piece, especially that is pounded to death, I know, in the media, but what do you suggest with people and their privacy concerns in that real, because it's really a perceived threat, I think.
If we're going to talk about, at least in the digital realm of gatekeeping, about social media apps, having they know who your friends are, they know, who your family are, they know. And so, what are they holding on to? A lot.
In
fact, Facebook.
Do I want to know?
Facebook even fought Apple about it. Like
What?
Facebook fought Apple about like
I don't know this.
some of the data collection policies and things like that. And what, you know, because in my job, what we do is we take small points of information and do big things with them, right? Like we just need just enough to do a
A
big
lot.
service for you, right? Like, hey, if I know where two things exist and how to get them to each other, then I'm a pretty powerful being, right? So, like, as we extend ourselves and interact through these social media platforms, you know, of course there's a gate there, like that we lay down as soon as we pick up the phone, you know, like,
Yes.
but you know, and what they're doing with it is all in their privacy policies, right? But like every once in a while people find out about it and they get very angry. It's mostly about targeted ads versus non-targeted ads, and like we used to have non-targeted ads and it was fine.
Can
I
I
remember
ask you a
TV
question?
commercials.
Can I ask you a question? I mean, I've always been dying to know this, but much to my family's chagrin sometimes, I can figure out my Christmas present on Facebook because especially if our iPhones or whatever devices, Androids, are all linked, I've noticed that unfortunately a few times, you know, my gift's been spoiled.
Well,
Those ads are, so how does that part even
what
work where it
happens
links
is
into that? Like you said, it knows your family, but that one has always been like kind of a spoiler alert. It's the only sad thing for me in that.
in software you can install telemetry and everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you know, if you're flying something like a plane, you only have, you know, real instrumentation, mechanical pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But in software, you can put that instrumentation anywhere, and you can collect any of the data, compile it, aggregate it, and use it any way you'd like, right? So when you aggregate all this data and you try to make the best choices for the platform, to try to get people more engaged, to try to keep people coming back, to try to, you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
That makes sense.
when you know, in efforts to keep people's eyeballs and sell targeted ads, you know, Facebook was looking, you know, at other, like how other apps were used in your phone and things at like your personal life to give you like, hey, we know you want this thing because, you know, all of your trends say you do.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know, is kind of comforting because every once in a while, you know, hey, I do need an umbrella or something. And I, you know, like, but
Or
at
dog
the
nail
same time,
clippers at my
like,
house.
at you know, when Apple introduced this new feature of the Ask Apps Not to Track,
Mm-hmm.
it shut down Facebook's ability to basically track you that granularly, and so
Oh.
it hurts advertisers in the way that they can't find you as easily and know that you would like their product,
Huh.
right? Like you would like my product, and I know this because Facebook has told me, you know, you're 18 to 25 and you eat a lot of pizza, and I'm a small pizza shop near your house, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
if you tell the apps not to track your phone, you probably won't get as many targeted ads, and you will all live in the world of commercials again, where like Mattel makes toy commercials because
Kind of like
kids are
we have to
watching
watch the video to
at
get the
these
free
times,
content.
right? So it's the difference between trying to find an audience at a time over a phone and over YouTube and whatever versus trying to find, you know, or over a TV even. Like you used to find advertisers used to find you by time, right? Saturday morning is when I'm advertising to kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you know, and things like that.
Oh,
But
yeah.
so that's what these companies use the gates for. The gate is to keep all of this information that they've collected about you to advertise to you, right?
Hmm.
And let people pay more money to advertise to you in a profitable model, right? So, like, the question is like, is the gate fine being there? Like, do we like it
Yeah.
there? And like, you know, what do you do with the gate? Do you hop over it or trip over it or what? You know, like it.
Yeah.
If it is a gate, then
And I think it moves from gatekeeping to social media. I think you sway in between, especially, you know, when we're looking at this topic, because social media is so much a part of therapy and everyday life for everyone. So I think that one's massively applicable for all of us. But I struggle when I watch. I've always been fascinated by Mark Zuckerberg, and I very much like. I love watching him during testimony in Congress, because I think it's honestly better than stand up, because we have people asking him questions that I'm pretty sure don't use those applications. I could be wrong, and I'm not throwing out any names, but I'm just saying we see people that are at least 70 plus asking Zuckerberg these very long, extensive questions, and he looks confused in it. Like, I feel like Mark needs a translator there, because it seems to me like he knows exactly what his product is and can explain it pretty clearly, and yet it feels unintelligible to everyone. I don't buy that fully. Like, does that make sense? I believe that we do know that at least I know that when I go on Facebook that there's a trade-off, right? Like, someone might get my info, someone might hack my account, but I like that service. I like posting pictures, and I don't miss 20 emails. Like having to send them. Remember in 1999 when we all started sending those long group emails? I don't ever want to see those again. So I like Facebook, and I'm okay with part of my privacy being, I don't want to use the word taken, because I don't view it as a taken, but as an exchange.
Letting them hold on to
exchange.
But they profiteer off of it and you don't. How is that?
That's a much more complex question. I think them profiting could, but they're not regulated. We don't have a definition yet for what that would even look like. With gatekeeping or technology or any of these items that can get abstract, and we want to keep them, for our listeners and for ourselves applicable, I think it's more about is it wrong that someone does that? I don't have an ethical or moral choice on this one. I'm just saying,
I think people have a problem putting themselves in the room that did the things, right? And like, see, in the tech industry, if you wanted to imagine building Facebook, you build a thing where all your friends get together and they all chat together online, right?
It's fun.
But it turns out you've collected all of these data points on people, right? And you can aggregate them, and you can put them together, and you can switch them into demographics, right? And you can build this giant advertisement machine that can pick people like down to a science, right? Do you see how useful that would be for your advertisers? And obviously
100.
Advertisers saw how useful that would be. So advertisers invest in this thing, right? Advertisers back Facebook. And yes, we definitely want targeted advertisements for segments, because we'll sell more products. Right? We'll pay Facebook to buy this data, and we'll sell more products because the people who are looking at it want it, right? That's the business model. That's how the profiteering works, right? Like, without it,
so
like I said, it's
fascinating.
Mattel on a Saturday morning.
It is.
Hoping
really
they
is.
catch you on time. Hoping they catch you right on time when you're sitting in front of your device, at the times.
At that. And I love algorithms, and it really seems like they have gotten those down to a science in terms of when patterns of people. I feel like maybe social media sometimes and AI can predict us better than we can predict us. And that gives me the creeps sometimes.
Right.
Just between you and me, yeah. And now everyone. But it does seem to have a predictor in it, which, gets interesting. But on a different note altogether, one thing I've always wanted to know that I feel, I hope it's okay to ask you, but I've heard college kids actually complain on this one. And I've noticed it too, especially when I'm searching for something maybe a little bit off topic for a client or something. It'll be like certain searches deleted, but I don't even have that engine, or do you know what I mean? Like on all these different search engines, why does it say some content deleted at the bottom? People want to know that, and I have not a clue.
That's
Is that maybe
here's
not
where we
something you
start
want
to
to answer?
Here's where we start to skid hard into gatekeeping and censorship, which is a touchy subject, right? Because there are some who would say, you know, at the largest gates, we should definitely have some of these sensors, and we definitely, and like in the form of technology, you can think of it as in trying to install gates to stop the spread of misinformation, right? So how would I possibly do that? Well, I'd have to get out. I'd have to get out in front of it, right? Like I have to know it exists, and I have to know where it is, where it was, where it's been, where it's going. You know, it's a hard thing to find. And so, like, you know, when they do find it, and if it is removed, you know, if misinformation is removed, like, you hit the argument of, well, who was calling it misinformation, right?
Right.
So the thing is that on the topic of, you know, gatekeeping and censorship, like, the battle is really about who gets to say what to whom and to how big of an audience. And you're talking about it at corporate levels behind billions and trillions of dollars.
So those silos get so kind of intertwined with one another that we would be unpacking 20 hours of information. But the point is that it exists in the sense of a built-in protection-ish?
I would like to... so I'll just take everything I said prior to this, and I'll just install that as that's just a sort of what it looks like behind a gate they built.
I see.
Right?
That makes sense.
This is the monster
that gives
we're
me
all
a better
standing in front of and looking
visual.
at, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is Jurassic Park.
Okay. I like that. I like that metaphor a lot. That helps me. I love it. Yeah. Jurassic Park. And I think it transfers from the quote unquote, I love how we all delineate the real world versus online. I'm not sure that's the case anymore. Like, it's just not. We are so tech involved in all aspects of life. And so the thought of gatekeeping not existing online too, or that things are not shielded, maybe is a better word than gatekeeping, shielded, it starts to beg some questions. And I think people want answers, you know, especially in my own field. I'm a why person. You know, I think people in tech are why and how based too. But, you know, when I'm fundamentally looking at it, I'm looking at it from, do we need this or don't we?
Well, I mean, when they invited...
That's what makes it confusing.
When they invited Mark...
I get confused.
To Capitol Hill...
Invited?
Said, I don't know what your business model is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't... I mean... If you imagine it as a person who, okay, you know, you get the subpoena and then you show up to Washington and you sit down at a table. Now, if I'm a business person and like they say, hey, you have a meeting at 11, and I go sit down and the person across the table has no earthly clue how I make money.
Right.
Like, you know,
literally in his
this
case.
This is all signs point to bad, right? This is a waste of my time. I shouldn't be in this meeting. How much longer is this thing?
Right.
Like, I'm just, I just need to get out of here. Right. You know what I'm saying?
That's
like,
how he looks in those meetings. Like, I don't understand what you were literally asking me. He looks, we need to get him a translator.
Well, I mean, you have to understand what it's like to stand in front of the biggest gate too, like especially in the terms of like how many billions of monthly active users that Facebook alone
has. He has a big job.
Right. You're standing in front of a very large gate, right? You know, and we're asking people to make morally conscious decisions even when there's money involved, right? And that's the real question.
It's hard, right?
Can you make morally conscious decisions even when there is, and I mean,
Yeah.
dump trucks of money involved. So, like,
Right. Can you? I mean, I think it's a yes and no answer, right? I think that's one that people have to make their own assumptions and bring up their own cultural values and their own interpretation of that on. And I guess for me, from the perspective of looking at all the doors behind social media, what one is the one that hasn't been opened, like that people don't ask about that you notice? Like, I've told you a lot of what people say, but I haven't asked probably the most important question of what do you think is people are missing as a tech person? Because everyone's got an opinion on tech. We know that. That's so obvious to all of us. And if you aren't sure about that, then we can just go online. Someone will have an opinion. We can pull that up in 5 seconds. But from your perspective, what are people missing? What are we missing in terms of the good questions to actually be asking people or ourselves? I don't know.
Yeah, that's hard to answer.
It's a hard question.
Like, I can tell you this in technology, the longer I've been in it really behooves me to know what something does and what it is and why it exists.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I like
and
that.
know how I can plug it into something else and how it works for me and why, like, because and how much the thing costs, right? And so when I'm looking at it, I can put like a cost analysis against it. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do I need to get done?
Yeah.
How much is it going to cost? What's the effort look like? And, and you're just out there building stuff like that. I mean, Facebook has move fast and break things, right? And like the joke was well, you broke society. And like, I mean, that's kind of an unfair assessment, but like,
you
like,
broke society.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Or politics or however you're going to look at it, right? Like you broke things, but like it's really on an engagement level, right? So it's on an engagement level. And my question, I guess, when I look at it is how negative is my news feed and how much of this reflects me punching the buttons in the slot machine, right? I'm pulling the slot machine and like, man, I'm looking at the most negative stuff. And they told me these algorithms like latch onto this. Like, wow.
It's
hey,
amazing.
Where do I find some puppies?
Back to the puppies, right? That's my break with Instagram is puppy videos, and I love them. I love them, but that is such I've gatekeeped myself to subscribe to only dog channels for that time on social media. Mm-hmm. So I've created my own barrier. And I think people can do that too. They can gatekeep for themselves. I don't think we think of it that way, but if we are so overwhelmed, if you will, by technology, right? We need to dial it back a notch sometimes too and look at the gatekeeping of ourselves too. But where I'm going with that is we can constrain our time function and limits.
I try to look at it in produced outputs, right? I was mentioning, I feel like I work for the railroad, right? Like in the game of life. In the game of life, I work for the railroad, and I'm building railroad out in front of myself. I'm building railroad in front of my friends, in front of my family, in front of my coworkers, and like all the trains are going, and like the more you keep building the train tracks, and like the faster the locomotive gets going, you got to keep building rail faster and faster and faster, like until you come to a point where it's just catching up to you. You're just getting so tired of laying tracks, and you're trying to help everybody lay their other tracks, and then it just, which is all fine, right? Like, it's all fine to feel these ways, but the gates are also important, not only to understand what's being kept from you, but like the other way. The gates work two ways, right? Like a gate works the opposite direction also. You are walking in there, you're going in, you're, and so if you're using it as a place to blow off steam or congregate with people to talk about a certain thing and a topic and whatever, you're going to see more of that type of content because you're in the algorithms, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've walked through the gate. You know what I'm saying?
That's
It's
an
like
interesting way
a
to
theme
look
park,
at it.
maybe.
Yeah, and you have done back end stuff of building products up. And I think that what you said earlier, I just want to flip back to it for a second. That building block of knowing why we have that product or what its intention is. I think that was a really important point. And I want to get back on it because I don't think we always do that investigation when we use a product. I think probably it's natural for someone who works in that. I know for myself, I don't every time I download an app look at its function. So maybe a little more, how could we teach listeners to kind of hone in on those skills on what would I even want to ask, I think, when I'm downloading an app, or, what kind of questions, as someone who's built something up, do you tend to ask yourself that could be applicable to everyone?
Well, I guess I'm a utilitarian type of person, right?
You are.
There's a whole nother topic that we can visit about the filtered world that we see through Instagram and
Yeah.
reels and stuff like this. And
That could be a
the
year
faces
episode.
don't even look real anymore. They're not people. We don't see
Or
people
avatars.
online. Yeah, exactly. So you're not it's not on my block like it used to be where I'm seeing you face to face. I'm seeing this filtered version. That's like a whole nother. That's just something on the other side of the gate, right? It's just a different gate to go down with Instagram and stuff. So I think of everything individually, right? Facebook is this, and Instagram is that, and Snapchat is this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just my definition. And by putting the definition on it, I understand how I'm going to use it or whether it's just going to sit on my phone unused.
Right. I see your point there. Yeah, I do. I think a lot of us don't go into the layers, and I like your approach on it because I don't think the average person overthinks tech. And normally my job as a therapist is to help us not overthink. Right? That is my sole purpose, is to get that medium place. We'd call it the wise mind in my field, but either way, just sort of centered, right? But this is actually one where I don't think I'm thinking enough on. I'm just going to be honest about myself. I don't think enough when I install a product, all the different layers of it. And I mean, I don't want to spend 5 hours either reading on a product, but I think just even starting there, right, with what is the intention or what is the use of this and how?
Well, yes, to build on that.
Yeah, please.
I mean, okay, when I think about what I'm going to do with the app, why I'm downloading the app, what I want to do with it, what's Facebook, what's the app of Facebook? What's its what can it do for me? What's out there? What's on the other side of it?
Uh-huh.
Right? What's inside? What does it offer? What can you do in the theme park?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what's the theme park's designed to do? Right? It's designed to take your money and keep you doing business in the theme park. Because as soon as you leave the theme park, you're no longer a customer, right? You're not going to buy any more sodas. You're not going to buy any cotton candy. The family's left, right? Facebook's main intention is to keep you there.
Mm-hmm.
And it, by any means
Does
possible.
it well.
By any means possible. Well, it turns out they did it in a brilliant, look.
I'm not complaining.
If you and I were to write an algorithm about interactions, we would sit around a table and we would first start to say, okay, well, we're going to make these building blocks, right? These cards. And these cards is whatever people type, an image, a link, whatever it is, okay? And then people are going to interact on it, right? People click people click interact, people click angry, right? And then we're going to make a weighting system for it and there we have it. It's an algorithm, and the better the weight, the more people we show it to, and we'll just make buckets like that, and we'll make all kinds of levers. Like I said, instrumentation. Like when I say instrumentation, it's the instrumentation to slide a lot of people in one direction or another, which is why I try to be careful when I'm talking about censorship. And when we're talking about gatekeeping, because if you imagine like operating a tech company as operating physically a dam that has a whole bunch of water behind it, and a whole bunch of things need to go to places, and there's a lot of pipes, and there's a lot of teams, and there's a lot of efforts happening, and it's not like that at all, but it's kind of like that on like a global level.
Yes, I'm really glad you said it that way. And the concept that comes to my mind immediately when you were talking about that, I don't know if you ever played this game. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But Roller Coaster Tycoon, it's like you get to build your own theme park, right?
Game. Oh, yeah.
And that's what comes to my mind. Like you keep adding to it, right? Like you get this raw piece of land and you get more people and you add more rides, and like the different buttons change over time. Like I know for at least a year, I didn't know that was a little care thing. I thought people were like sad for me. I didn't even know what that meant when I saw that initially. For a year, I'm like, I didn't mean this post is sad. Why does this look so dramatic? And what does that even mean? Because I didn't look it up. I mean, I just didn't care. But my point being is it keeps getting added, like the anger so my concept when you talk, I just think of those games where you used to keep building and it's endless.
Right.
It never stops going.
Well, I guess like in looking at it as a game and going through Roller Coaster, I agree with you. But, like, I mean,
that's the first thing.
In looking at it as a game like Roller Coaster Tycoon and stuff, and like let's look at it as a game, and the game is you're building sort of a slot machine, and in the slot machine you can make reactions, and those reactions you can change them to be anything you want: happy, sad, mad, angry, right? Like remember, we started with like. We started with just like. That's where the algorithm was, right? We started with just like. And then we added them in. We sort of layered it on. And then, like, when you talk about gatekeeping, like, because in the instance, if I work for Facebook and we are the software producer, like, yes, it is my vision of how these reactions stick together, right?
Yeah.
And, like, that's sort of how it sort of comes to fruition. You know what I'm saying? Like... I mean, I don't know. Does it, like, I guess a question I would have is, do you think it adds to the social, like, to the broader social narrative, like, the different types of reaction on Facebook? Like, would it be better to sort of narrow it down or even expand it further in just the one-touch reactions, the ones that are simple to do, the ones that are like, yes, that's or whatever, you know? Do you think that changing those might help
change psychology?
Gatekeepers maybe like find, you know, like make the masses a little, like, how could they quickly tap and speak to the masses?
Well, I really like that question, and I probably will have a question after that question, but it's a really good psychological perspective in the sense of, you know, the more we mire and complicate things, the more attention it gets. So it depends which, I guess, way we're looking at it, right? When I look at it from the perspective of a kid, right? Like, we're just doing our thing, and they don't have any real thought in terms of when they consume media. But when you and I go on Facebook, that like, you and I both know it just takes 1 second to click the like. But if I want to be angry, I have to like hold on to it, wait, and then let you know I'm angry.
It's a gesture, correct? It's
a gesture. It's not just I'm angry. It's I have to pick that emotion, right?
I mean, what would the world look like if we slid angry to first?
Right. So my question is, you have a perfect question. Does that create a construct of fostering hate, right? Or whatever we want to call it, or dislike or contempt, because it does get more reactions. You know, what is most popular online is arguments. People love argument videos. I think you could have a channel of people arguing all day and it would be very popular. I think we do have that channel. It already exists. But my point being, I think it would change things. I think, again, good and bad, right? The good news is we then don't get to have to be pumped through with engagement or let knowing our friend hates that comment or hates that post on it creates a different layer versus just you don't think about who didn't like something.
Right.
I don't think anything normally if there hasn't been a strange comment or reaction. So it doesn't create a lot of thought behind it. But when 10 people respond with little angry emojis, I'm like, oh, maybe I did something wrong.
Right. See,
Does that make sense, the psychology? So my question is, I can see both arguments for it,
Yeah.
but I think simplification might be one if we're trying to avoid negativity.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree there. Because, like, you definitely want to... If behind the gate is where the narrative is controlled, then, of course, there's going to be a lot of social discourse about how the narrative is being controlled, right? And, like, the thing is that if you look behind the gate at the profit model of the company, right? Like, you understand their goals, right?
Yeah.
I paid you a lot of money to be on my team and win me games because money. And then, like, even though they say bad things about you, I still back you because money. Now that you're losing me money because the heat is too hot, I'm going to dump you because money, right? The company's goal is very crisp and clear. And it shouldn't, how can you misconstrue this? I mean, it's in everything, everywhere, all the time, do they care? And like, are they trying to fix this at the same time? For sure. But their goal is money. Like,
right.
Do you see what I mean? And like I sort of, it's like, what do people still do anyways? Even, yeah, sure. Like, move fast, break things. All right, it's all broken. They're still using it, right? It's sticky. Mm-hmm. It's sticky. They're all still inside of the broken thing. Like, it's like flypaper, right?
It is. It is like flypaper. They just suck on. Yeah. I think with regard to that, what do people then do to, I guess, get one thing off of people's plates? What would be the best solution? I'm always looking at the helping point with all of these different moving pieces. What helps people get to a more neutral state where we're not both overthinking and underthinking the power of these platforms? Because that's a really hard question, because there's a lot of overthink if I want to. I can, again, like I said, I'm not ever going to spend 5 hours reading, but I can see someone wanting to do that, like getting paranoid now, like, oh, goodness, they're trying to take all this. Then I can see the extreme end of complete apathy of not having any cognizance of what you are putting out there. So it's this, like you're saying, a really delicate, fine balance. So in looking at what we could disseminate best, and you are an expert in tech, what would you suggest to the average, by average I mean all of us that don't work in tech, what would you suggest in consumption and learning? What do you feel like we don't know? Because I feel like there's a lot I don't know about tech. I could probably write 100 things I don't know.
Right. I mean, there's always going to be...
Of course.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I know what I know. And then I know what I don't know. And I'm very comfortable with those two things. But then, man, we hit that part where I don't know what I don't know. And then...
yes.
Then you're really, grabbing the flight controls and trying to fight it back into stable, Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean... It really just comes down to thinking about what is your purpose for opening the app. Like, when I open Instagram, I'm opening it to share a little snap of what I'm doing and like do the things. But here's the thing: is working in technology for 20 years, like Dave
bet.
Chappelle says Twitter's not a place, but like I actually take a hazmat suit off when I come out of my office of the internet. Like I get the internet off of me and I go to my daughter, right? And I spend time with her.
Uh-huh.
Like, and sure, maybe she's on the internet, but I've jumped out of it, right? Like I'm no longer in the internetosphere and I'm spending time with her and we are doing something on the internet together, right? And like, so I guess when I go in, I'm sort of going in with purpose because like, I mean, the most important thing around you will never not be the physical world, like what's right in front of you, right? The greatest
Literally.
danger posed to you is the thing right in front of you, right? Like you know, like so
I like that.
if you just sort of take it that way and I'm sort of like using it in a way of like I said, having a a process, like a thought, a reason, a reasonable reason to use it. Like this is what I'm doing with it. It's a tool. It's something I'm
There's mindfulness with you.
right because like it's not it's
That's
not
really
my
cool.
form of entertainment, right? Like YouTube is my form of entertainment for sure because like I watch a lot of YouTube and like I watch all kinds of services like Netflix and things like that. Like a way, it depends on what you're calling entertainment. And we talked about sort of like sorting sorting things out in our brains before, right? Like what goes in the entertainment bucket, right? And like if Instagram and Facebook are in your entertainment bucket, like they're there
Yeah.
by choice, and like feel free to slide those to a new bucket. And like I have them in a useful bucket, but I definitely troll through them,
Yeah.
at periodically throughout the day, and just sort of surf what's going on there. It's just about understanding what's in the gate. Like I'm in the theme park, right? How do I ride?
I love that concept. And I think it's really useful to capture that because that will help me too, personally and professionally. Because again, it goes back to that balance of what do I do with all these products? What do I do with my time too, right? And you know how I use social media. I do a little bit of my business stuff on there, and I mainly post pictures of my dog or family. Again, don't want to go back to emails. But when I'm looking at others, they are struggling, and I like your mindfulness approach to it. I just think that's needed. I think hearing that from someone in tech is so useful to others.
Well,
And
where are you when you're using your phone, right? Like in your brain, like inside your mind, not
yeah,
not physically,
yeah,
but like when you're using your phone and you have it and it's in front of you, like that's a important place to notice. Where am I? Like, and I think about how much more portable entertainment has become just through
so
technology
right.
over just
Your hotel room, you don't
generations,
have to watch the
like
bad hotel TV anymore.
yeah, you watch whatever you want. Everybody, like, it's just on tap, on demand, in front
It
of
really
you
is.
all the time. And and like that's really, I think that uh, when you walk into the theme park, you're taking the ride, right? But it's okay to set some boundaries down while you're in the theme park, right? Like, you still have some personal space while you're in there and
Yes.
everything. But don't forget to leave the theme park. Like, you don't want to just stand there like all the time. Like,
Endless cotton
have your
candy.
fun, get out, and go rest, but go back to the hotel room, hit the pool, like,
Oh, I agree with you. I agree. I mean, I think the struggle is manageable. I really do on this one. But I think it begs a lot of individual questions that we can't solve for others. But yeah, I can only speak for myself personally. Like I think I said in the last podcast too, we don't allow any TV or screen time at dinner, like on purpose. And I like that old way of just sort of being present, right? But what I've told my clients recently, especially with the humdrum of the pandemic and so many of us working at home, hey, you're already on social media. Why don't you go look at some 5-minute clips of comedy? Use YouTube, whatever it is you like. But don't get sucked into something that's going to break away in the day, that's going to make you angry. What you consume matters. Kind of like words matter, right? What we consume matters. What I'm feeding in matters.
I guess I'm wondering what it sort of means from like a mental perspective. If like, okay, so during the pandemic, we're all sent home and we're all sent bored by ourselves, and we all pick up social media, and Facebook turns on all this stuff
Noise,
saying,
as
hey,
you say.
hey, when you react to stuff, we're going to show you more of it. And everybody's just posting like the worst stuff. And people are like, yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah,
So
and
bad.
like, it was like, do you see that as some sort of like a lesson about like mob mentality, or?
Oh, what a
like,
great question. That's the best question.
what do you think about that? Like, because when people are using, like, the platform is there to give you what you want, right? And, like a butler. Yeah, here you go. And like, and you're going angry.
So angry.
Like,
so angry.
what-
They need a so angry one.
Right. So, like, what do you think that?
Oh, I think we can. I hope one day there's a class at UCLA or something on just the pandemic in terms of media, social media. I love that question. I think it created a lot of harm with mob mentality. I don't know. I'd say 3/4 of my clients defriended either a family member or dear friend. And these were conversations in therapy. And I'm sitting there thinking like, oh my goodness, like that's huge that we were able to be that divided in the sense of we're this thing or that thing, and there's no in between. And to see that really was painful to watch in people that, loved their aunt. I've heard about their aunt in therapy for 5 years, and now, boom, all that silence, crickets, suddenly, no one's speaking to each other. So that mob mentality piece, I think, that goes back to the gatekeeping. I'm not sure who the they people are responsible for some of that content, but in the sense of it's certainly a learning experience. I hope we all have learned, at least not all, but for myself, I learned that I need to offer some people grace, right? There's this kind of all or nothing version of, I think, when we look at Facebook, I either like it or I don't. I know we've inserted all those like in between ones, like the weird huggy one, or care, whatever it is. My point is we've made a lot of decisions based on literally a like or an angry face.
Yeah, well, there are certain
That's not
apps
okay.
out there
It scares me.
that want you to make a snap decision and just swipe
Scares
in
me.
directions. We'll get to some of those apps in other episodes for sure, right?
Yeah.
Like, but in those apps, you're just making a snap judgment and going left or right, and like you're doing, and like in technology, people talk in terms of click funnels and getting you clicking and clicking down a path and clicking down a way until you convert, right? Conversion is punching the cash register, money in the bank, right? But that Stripe charge, pow, right? So like it's definitely interesting to hear what you have to say on mob mentality. Like
What's your vision
I
of
agree
mob
with that.
mentality?
Yeah,
with
like I don't know if mob mentality is a weird subject because it felt like almost like everybody's, instead of airing their dirty laundry out over a telephone or in their house, they were doing it
for the first time.
in like because they were so bored and everybody was congregating in social media, everybody just like hung their laundry out digitally
A little bit.
and like it, and then everybody was out there watching too, because I was cruising through the internet watching this. Like I was born to watch
I
this.
can't imagine what you were thinking.
I
What
was
were you
born.
thinking? I've got to know, because
Well,
that is one question I've never asked you.
I
but,
was
like,
thinking, oh, there's the old YouTube comments.
I love it. I love it. Back
Yeah.
in the day.
Yeah, there's the old, there's the IRC channels I remember, like this is what people are saying to each other now. Wow. okay.
It was incredible.
You know, and it does. It gets really,
Not in a good way.
It gets really. I think that you know, especially just to, like, sort of zoom it back into picture here, like the, you know, gatekeeping and speech is where a lot. If you have gatekeeping, speech, and money as the trifecta, like the trifecta of what we're talking about here, right, and where all of those things land
Yeah.
in one point is really what everybody is arguing about, right, where they all think they should land. And, like, just to, you know, zoom back a little bit, you know, they did have tech giants on Capitol Hill, and they did talk to these people.
Oh, did
and,
they?
Like, well, they had, no, they had Zuckerberg up there many times.
Oh,
They've
yeah,
had,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
they've had.
I thought you meant
CEOs
like they brought in tech people, and I was like,
No,
I
no,
never
no,
knew
no.
that.
But what I'm saying
I was
is
so
that
excited. Never mind.
Like, the truth is that, you know, there's proponents saying that regulation would make this a better place. And the opponents are saying, well, like, regulation will only complicate, you know, how the, you know, the speech is formed out there and stuff like that. And they, like, constitutionally, you're going to run quickly into the First Amendment on the internet. And so, like, there are certain things I can't say now. Like, I can't scream that there's a fire in a crowded movie theater, right? And so when you talk about bringing regulation in, you're actually talking about legislating some rules there. So, of course, everybody's a little bit apprehensive about that, right? So if we all know it exists and there's people who are apprehensive about it, then we just have to trust the people who are making the decisions with them. And, like, honestly, right now, at least from everybody who talks to me ever, is nobody does.
Yeah, right. I was going to say we have to, but I don't think anyone is feeling extra trustworthy. But I do wonder if it bounces back a little bit to that great divide, right? I think there's a direct line of where it branches off, like you said, to the old YouTube comments, to where we were posting. I mean, the average person was posting photos normally with their kid, right? Or, you know, #blessed, right? Like, that was what it looked like. And maybe healthy, unhealthy doesn't matter in terms of the context of this conversation. But then it got revved up to, like, we went from 1 to 500, like, just like you said, everyone just starts airing things, and now there's no gatekeeper. Like, apparently, like, that's the illusion. Of course, there are people behind the scenes trying. You can only funnel and try so much with, it sounds like, what is a very complex system that I never will fully understand today. But my point being, there's definitely a marker there. And when you ask that question of what people, you know, like and don't like, or will agree and will not agree on, I don't know where we find that sweet spot right now in history. And I think that's hard for everyone, because no one, it seems like everyone's got a compass, but for some reason it's decalibrated. I don't know. That's how I view it in my own mind. Like, we all get a compass. And I think we know when we write things online. You and I talk about this a lot. You'll see these comments or things that we write, and that's permanent, though. It's permanent. It's a permanent record of what we did. My point being, though, when we do that, it's just, it can be either very healthy or very dangerous.
I just want to put out that, like, you said, it is permanent. I want to double down on that. You are absolutely right. It is permanent. Even if you delete your account, like, you know, did they delete your account? Like, in some instances, yes.
Like,
you know what I'm saying? Like, that, and there are questions about the rules around that kind of stuff too, right?
That's interesting.
Like,
I didn't know
when
that.
you decide that you're taking stuff off or leaving the platform, do they delete or destroy your data, right? And, like, that's another part of the amusement park that nobody talks about.
Yeah, I didn't know that part myself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can see them why, you know, people that probably read a little more on tech than I do have some concerns.
Yeah, that'd probably be another
That would be a different
discussion.
episode, yeah. But I mean, I do think when we're looking at that, it really brings to my mind that it is, again, a topic that doesn't have a perfect answer. It does, though, have some explanation of at least how everyone is perceiving it. There's some breakdown of it. I think people are really struggling in it every day right now. And especially, the audience members that work at home, and you and I both work at home, but I think that's created a whole new world too of online feeling that is our closest form of connection when we're isolated in our home. We're not working in cubicles anymore, all of us. And
Right.
it's very different. It's a new way of life. So maybe that's why we can answer it. It's like the new frontier, right? Not a lot of history to base it on. So much of history we can predict on past. There is not a whole lot of past on this one. It's a new frontier. So I think that's why it makes it tricky, don't you?
I do, and I think that's something that was like severely lacking during the pandemic was like leadership, right? Like we all looked around and we're like, well, what's the county doing about this? What's the mayor doing about this? And like, nobody understood anything. Nothing was well communicated, and so like we all felt sort of abandoned and alone. And we're in these social apps talking to each other,
About how mad we are.
and feeling fear, right? Fear. Not mad, not like even like start
that's a better
before the
word.
mad. Start before the mad. Start about like that's the thing. And then like, and when it starts at fear, it can go any direction. And if mob mentality is simply swept into the mix, I think we have a lot to talk about when it comes to what we think the rules should be for using this engine, right?
Yeah.
But until everybody sits down to talk about that, it's just up to the company, right? And it's going to be that way, and it's going to remain that way until it's not.
So kind of to summarize, if you had to pick one kind of highlighted point for the everyday person, what question should they ask themselves to be part of that? Like what should I be asking myself with tech in terms of what I want out of it? Does that make sense?
Well, if you're fighting the thing, and
Yeah.
just put it down. Like that's
Put it
pretty
down.
cut and dry. Like if it's in your way, it's not helping you.
Right.
Nothing that's
yeah.
in your way is ever helping you. So, like if you can't do it this way, do it a different way. And like, most of the people I ever worked for they were never mad. Like if I showed up and I had something, just don't show up empty-handed.
Yeah.
Like whatever you do, don't show up empty-handed. And as long as you don't show up empty-handed, people are usually pretty forgiving about most of the other things. They're like, oh, hey, let's look at what you got there, like, oh, okay, I see what we're trying to do,
Yeah, and I really hope we've conveyed something today about, again, that working together of you letting me into your field, me letting you into my field. I think these are the conversations that people aren't having
Well,
because they're hard.
I like the way that you sort of I struggle with like trying, and I like your help in narrowing it down to just how people are using these things, right? Like because
you don't know
you're
either.
right, there's a gate there, and like it's a big one, and it's like it's a big theme park, and like how are people using this thing? What's everybody doing in there? Like like only some sit behind the cameras of the theme park, like, and some other people have to imagine what's happening in there, right?
Right.
And all the people out here beating the algorithms are the ones imagining what's going on in the theme park and doing a great job,
They are. They are. And yeah, I think we really summarized that part well, that it's a new frontier.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new frontier. Questions and answers are going to keep coming in. So I think I would, aside from the obvious complaints about tech that clients always have, I think that's a new thing for me to ask people. What is the intention behind that product? What are you using it for? I think that's a great therapy question that I wouldn't have ever like honestly thought to mindfully ask until today. Like, what is your intent with this? Because I think I've just accepted that the world is just everyone is on this thing. Does that make sense? Like my construct is not your construct of you work in tech so you can jump in and out. Whereas for me, I'm hearing about it all day and I'm like, oh, I don't know. So it's been so helpful for me to help people think more on it because I don't think the average person is thinking this deeply on something that seems just there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you remember the conversation? I mean, we both like that conversation, like the commencement speech of David Foster Wallace.
So
right?
amazing.
Don't forget that the phone's there too, right? If that phone's in your face and replaces your eyeballs, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. It's still just the perspective. It's still just the window. It's the glass. It's the pane, right? Like it's the thing you view it through. Like I said, when I leave my work for the day, I take off my internet radiation suit and I spend time with my family, right? Like, it can be toxic out there, but you know what? Like, if the world was left to put like make the content of the internet, and it starts to go poorly, right? Like, I just want to be somebody who is trying to put good content on there, not necessarily in combat of, but like because I just feel good doing it, and I'm having
your posts
a good
are always
time
so
doing
positive and happy.
Like I'm having a good time doing it, and I'm trying to, like just because the sky was gray this morning doesn't mean my feelings are.
No. No, and I like, and it's nice when I do tell my clients this, like follow, maybe cut your social media list down to 10 people that you actually follow. Like you are one, it's such an easy go-to for me because I know what you post. I mean, I'm sure one day you will throw me off, but it's normally going to be funny. And I love doing that in between my sessions, or you'll sometimes text me a joke. And, and oddly, I've met someone on Instagram that I don't know her, but she'll send me like therapy memes all day. And that is so funny to me. Like that is connection in a good way. I don't ever have to know her life story. We don't chat. And she sends therapy memes and I'll send her something I find. Mm-hmm. Like that is positive. Nothing negative has been exchanged. There's just, it's so nice. And so again, I like what you're saying there. It can either be very toxic if we want it to be. If I want to go online and get mad, I only need 2 seconds, literally 2. But if I think it does take a little more work to naturally set up your day with that intention of how am I going to use this in a positive way instead of viewing this as my enemy. And I think some clients do view
all my enemies are, right?
It's a frequent conversation, and I mean, gatekeeping and like I said, are norms for it, whatever we want to call it. It just gets convoluted and complicated in things that people don't understand. Like you said, we don't know what we don't know. But I do think it really helps to hear a little bit even of the back end, because I think too much information goes back to too much information. We were talking earlier, sometimes you get these great things that are huge data dumps, for example, and then you're like, that's great. What do I do with this? What do I do with this information? So
right, but if it's positive information, right? Like
that's where I'm going.
Then what do I do with it? Right?
Exactly. Yes. I love that you knew where I was going with that. So I do know what to do a little bit better when it stays more in the world of tangible and obtainable. So I'm with you on that one. And I really love that you are willing to explain a little bit of the back end because it's sensitive. It's just like the back end of psychology. There's so many nuances to our field that people, I don't think, know on therapists and psychologists. And, I feel every industry has its own little bit of gatekeeping, and we want to say it doesn't, but it does.
Right, but that's like, I don't want to shift the way it means too much, right? Like in different things. Like,
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
exactly. Yeah. And like I gotta say, like when I just decided to use Instagram to just, hey, this is what we're doing today. This we did this. This was cool. This was, and like it was sort of like a documentary of like, how productive I was kind of being, and like how, not how happy I was, because you can just paste a smile on in a picture. But what I'm saying is like in your day to day, right? Like, you just sort of look back at the good times you had and the good things that were happening, the cool things and stuff like that. And like, I especially like the prelude to this, like in like following your Instagram account and the way you, you went into videos, you started going into like the videos and the live feeds and stuff like that. And like, it's like, it's exciting. It's something, to be able to get out there and say something and like, use this area of, space, right? Like, it's my social account and here's how I use it, right? Like, is it a platform, a pedestal? Is it just a place where you stick the trolling motor on the boat and fish and,
Right.
sort of putter around a little bit, where is it? And like, I think that if people look at the intentions that they're using, when they pick up the app and what they're going to put on it and into the world, right? Like, just a brief examination, like a little pre-flight checklist before
Oh, definitely.
you get into the thing.
I
then,
like that. Yeah, I never have really thought of it in that concept. But I think my clients will really like that concept too, including myself. And I think it's helpful. I think it's really a helpful topic in the sense of what does that look like? How do we sort through it? How do we navigate in it? And I find it all fascinating. It's evolution. Just a personal story. You remember the Commodore 64? Mm-hmm. Yeah. My dad in his 70s got a Commodore 64. Like he's 68, 70 by now at this point. Grandparents, but adopted. So call him my dad. And he like taught me how to just do some like minor programming on there. And I felt like a rock star. Like I felt so excited and so cool in those moments. But just looking at the evolution from that little imprint in my mind of that first computer and what we have. I mean, my iPhone functions 5,000 times better than that Commodore did, but
right.
But I love that computer and its simplicity. At that time, that's all we knew. And look at where we're at. I would wager money my dad would have never said we'd have a conversation on regulation and gatekeeping on the internet. I mean, he was pioneering his science stuff long before on that territory.
Right.
And if I would have told him that it was regulated, or attempting to be regulated, I think he would laugh in my face. So I just look at that and I'm like, this is a really interesting construct.
Mm-hmm.
It's
like
new frontier, like I said.
I agree with you. Yeah, actually on all that, I think we'll go into this week's app of the episode. Like, I love the, I'll call back to where you were talking about using technology as a young girl. I've been using Audacity a lot lately to produce our podcast, and it helps me do the voiceover work and multi-channel recording and things like that. And I learned a lot while using it. There's more to sound than you think, and so I've been using that, and I stuck my daughter in front of it the other day, and she was using it to record because she's getting ready to be the radio DJ at Enterprise Village.
I can't believe that.
She was so
happy.
If you
do Ira's daughter, she's
just
so adorable.
Be recording in Audacity and flipping back over to the script, and like life was just primo right there. So when everybody hears the clips on the end of all of our YouTube videos, that's where we got them. That was some of the content from the intern.
It is so cute. I love that she did that, and that software is working great. And then the community thought, I think I'll kind of piggyback today off of when we're looking at St. Pete locally, especially our area, what are we missing or what could we add from a tech perspective to the community for it to be closer as it keeps growing? So my kind of community thought is if people reach out and let us know their thoughts on what they think with tech and St. Pete and togetherness, because luckily we do live in an area that really kind of embodies that vibe of wanting a sense of community. How do we do that with technology too? I think that's a good question and hope we get some feedback on that, because that'd be really cool to find out how many places we can take tech to more of a positive spin. I really like that direction, and I think we got a lot of creative people in this county.
Oh yeah,
I just gotta walk around.
I mean, I remember
I see it.
the decade of the 80s, right?
Yeah.
And everybody thought they were cool. Everybody. But not only did they think they were cool, they knew it.
I don't think you saw my clothes in the 80s. You would not think I was cool.
And what was funny was like almost nobody was that cool or whatever. And it like spills into the early 90s and stuff. And like what I think
I
is
thought
great
it was a rock star in the 90s.
is that if you would have put Instagram on top of that thing, right? And here's all the cool stuff. Like imagine how much more cool stuff you could have saw if you would have known what other people was saying was cool.
Right.
Right? And that's the generation we live in now. Mm-hmm. Is we get to know what everybody thinks is cool. Like
everyone.
It's almost too much telemetry.
That's hilarious. Yeah, there's no penny for your thoughts anymore.
Right, but I mean, hey, in keeping it smaller, and keeping it granular, and keeping it grassroots on my blog in St. Pete, using our technology to show what a great place this is and how why we love being here. This is a this is the number one housing market in the country. Here we go.
I've heard. All right. Well, I thank you so much, Ira, for helping the audience and others, especially with all these layers, a little bit of a behind the scenes of tech, because it's always an area for me that I feel lost in too. So I really appreciate it so much.
Yeah, I definitely like when you definitely help me marry it back to people. Like it's easy to get lost in the theme park and because I'm just looking at hey, this is where they take all the animal dung.
Yeah. Well, I think we have the same
and I don't
thing going
really
in
remember
reverse.
how it relates back to people sometimes, and sometimes I'm just doing it and I don't even notice, right? It is nice to pick your head up and notice a little bit, and I thank you for putting it back together for me sometimes,
I appreciate it, and I hope it's helpful, and it was helpful, at least I think on a level for me to be more mindful too on intentions with tech. I really love that. That's my biggest takeaway from today. So I'll kind of end on that note. I like that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's what I'm taking.
It was a good talk, and I'm sure the tech conversations of more of that. I certainly have more questions, but I'll save those for maybe a year from now. But you've given me some questions, so thank you.
We'll go a different way next
yeah,
episode.
Definitely. All right.